What is up, Noel Nation? Welcome to our game week live stream. We're going to be talking about everything Florida State and college football. We have week 3 reactions. Of course, we're going to talk about Florida State versus Kent State, and then we're going to look ahead at week 4. So, man, we got a fully loaded show for you guys. Really excited to jump into this one, Michael, because there was some pretty daggone good games to watch while Florida State was having a stress-free Saturday. We were kind of sitting at home, had our feet kicked up, not a whole lot to do, not a whole lot of stress on Saturday. But we were treated to some pretty good games, and it looks like there's a pretty decent slate for week 4 as well. Of course, we get back on the field and play Kent State, so we have our own game to talk about. So as we get people to jump in here on this live stream, thanks, guys, for joining us. It is Monday night, so we're going to react to the games. We're going to predict some games, look at some games, and we're going to talk about this one. So, man, Michael, lots to talk about today. Excited to have everybody here with us on this Monday night. But, man, how are you, my friend? And thanks for joining me for another live episode.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. I'm doing all right. Yeah, like you said, Saturday was a PYTS, Park Your Tookish Saturday. It was phenomenal. It was a great Saturday to not have to worry about a game, not to be stressed, and to sit back and just watch the chaos unfold before you, cheer on the teams you wanted to win, jeer the teams you didn't want to win, send memes to your friends across the country making fun of their teams, or saying, "Hey, bro, I'm so sorry, man. I really wanted them to win that game." Right? It was just a great weekend, and now we get back in the game week this week against Kent State. Looking forward to that as well too.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because we joked about this before, where last year when Florida State had a bye week, you were thankful because you were like, "Look, just stop playing. Hopefully, we don't lose this one." But at the end of the day, man, I think when you talk about this year, this team's been so fun to watch. I was actually kind of bummed to not be able to watch them on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I also will say that with the Kent State game coming after the bye week, after East Texas A&M, this is a very crucial point in the season from the fact that Florida State has an opportunity to basically have a second spring in the fall, which is very helpful for them to get better. But, man, I'm ready to get into conference play. I'm ready for that road game at Virginia. I'm ready for Miami at home because those are some big games, and those are the ones that are really fun to watch, the ones that really get you going. I mean, granted, I hope Florida State comes out and we get to watch a 50-point burger, hang a 50 burger on Kent State on Saturday. But, man, yeah, I'm ready for some big games. And we saw some big games on Saturday, and, of course, we're going to talk about that as well. Got a bunch of people jumping in the chat here. Appreciate you guys joining us. Just want to say what's up to everybody. Jeff is in here. Leonard, we got Henry in here. My guy, Henry. LSU made my night. I think he made everybody's night. LSU did with that one. Really, man, Gators struggling to start 1-2 on the season. Not looking so good for Billy and the boys there. Man, 5 interceptions for DJ Lagway. Michael, we're going to talk about that.
All of it.
We got to talk about all that. And a comment here says, all you can hear is LSU is the best team in the land. Don't get it. We're going to talk about that too, because that LSU team has not been perfect. But yeah, man. So let's talk about some things here. Like I said, if you're just joining us, we got Kent State to preview. We got some week 3 reactions and some week 4 look aheads. If you're here, guys, why not go ahead and like and subscribe the channel? Michael, I was looking at some analytics the other day. Almost 60% of our viewers are not subscribed. So, guys, we got to get better about that. Let's go ahead and jump on there. It is free to stay connected to the channel here with a like and a subscribe. We're going to have all kinds of content for you guys. As you know, pre-games, post-games, all kinds of stuff. So go ahead and jump on with us. We're pushing to try and get 3,000. I'd love to get that by the end of the season here. Florida State's racking up wins. Let's rack up some subs here. But, Michael, I think the first thing I want to talk about here is Florida State was already in the top 10 in the AP poll. They climbed 3 spots this week to number 7, even during the bye week. And I still got some gripes with this AP poll, right? It's still got a lot of problems. And I know when we talk about the AP poll, look, I'm not going to get on my soapbox like I did last week and go on this long tangent about it, but I still got a bone to pick with these voters, man. You got about 60 of them that vote, 60, 64 of them that vote on this. Some of them are okay, right? And some of these, frankly, should have their vote taken away because it is so bad. There needs to be some accountability with this. But like we said, man, Florida State comes in at number 7. It's nice to see them keep climbing the rankings here. And it's funny because, Michael, in one breath, we say it doesn't matter this early, right? You still have to go out and win these games. You beat Kent State. You go into that Virginia game. You're feeling good about yourself, top 7, top 5, whatever you may be at that point. If you lose that game, none of this matters. So it doesn't really matter this early in the season. But at the same time, these rankings do matter because this is how a lot of the playoff committee, all these strength of schedule metrics and these models and these things, this is where they get their ranked wins from. And some of these rankings are just fluff. They're ridiculous. Some of these guys obviously don't watch the game. So, man, Michael, there's the girl, the Haley girl, I think it was Haley last week. Well, first off, she deleted her Twitter. So she learned that maybe you should take this serious or don't speak on it. She actually went private there. But she actually kind of got a little bit better this week, right? But the one that I still got a bone to pick, man, this Koki kid, Koki Riley, I think his name is. He's an LSU beat writer. He looks about 12 years old, man. This kid, he might need to take a class on how to watch football at LSU. I'm not really sure because right now he has Notre Dame in the top 10, and they have not won a game this season. Meanwhile, Florida State is not ranked in his top 10, and they're also ranked behind Alabama, a team they throttled in week 1. He has Penn State at number 1, who hasn't beaten a Power 4 team yet. Some of the things with this, I just don't understand, and they deserve to be called out because, frankly, this is such a big part of college football that you should take this serious, man. And some of these rankings, they're just crazy, man. But Florida State comes in at number 7. That's good. That's everything. But, man, this AP poll is such a sham. I'm glad the playoff committee, for everything we hate about them, man, at least they don't do preseason rankings, but I'm sure they see this data, and I'm sure they take this into account. So this is why this is such a joke with this AP poll.
Yeah, and I almost wish, and I get, again, you guys have heard me say this time and time again. Jesse, you've heard me say this time and time again as well, too, is that, the rankings, especially preseason, all the way to really week 8, because they almost don't even matter until week 8, but they're all for the brand. They're all for the show. It's what gets the ratings. The networks want it, right? And honestly, let's be real. This is what keeps the AP still in relevance because no one even reads the AP anymore.
Right.
All their articles get sent anywhere. But this is what keeps them in relevance, right? Especially sports fan, is that we read the AP ranking. The problem with the ranking is if the desire, and I've said this before, if the desire is to rank the top 25 best teams, shouldn't that ranking be dependent upon how they played this past weekend, right?
Yep.
And so really almost every week should be a combination of how have teams looked, who have they played, who have they beaten, who have they lost to for the first 3 weeks of the season. And in my mind, Jesse, you can make the legit argument. Okay, you can make the legit argument. Now, the fact that Florida State had a bye week and they're 2-0, I could understand why they may not be number 1. But from a visible, what I watched on the field, what I saw with my eyes, when I talk about who has the best win in the country, it's clearly Florida State. It's clearly Florida State. And I know we're going to get into all of that stuff, but it's clearly Florida State. You look at everybody else. Look at Ohio State. Look at Penn State, LSU, Miami, Georgia, Oregon. You look at them, and you could clearly say, while they might look good or look okay, they didn't look like the best team in the country.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And some of the things that, like you said, man, so for me, I think first off, if I were the college football commissioner, I would outlaw preseason rankings. I don't care about your clicks. You can put them out if you want, but we're not going to use them, right?
Exactly.
So I understand why they do, right? It's clicks. You wouldn't have ranked matchups in week 1. You wouldn't be able to fit the bill with TV and all that stuff. I get all that. But for me, Michael, I think it should be, if you're looking at like week 1, it should be like 90% what you do in week 1 and then 10% maybe in the preseason expectations. Because I think preseason expectations, they do hold some weight, right? But you just don't know till you see the team hit the field.
Right.
The farther you get in, I definitely think it should be based on, what have you done lately? What have you done this week? But also your body of work that you drag behind you. So like the Alabama win, right? You can't go because it's going to happen to Florida State. This isn't the same Alabama team that Florida State played in week 1. This is a much different team. It's coming.
Oh, yeah, it's coming.
And so I think that you should be forward-looking, but also carry what you've actually done, not preseason expectations. Because when I look at the 25 in front of me here, again, Penn State is 3-0, has not played a Power 4 team yet this season. That's not a number 2 resume. It's a number 2 resume, but it's not the number 2 resume, if we're being honest. And then LSU, you went on the road and you beat a top 10 Clemson team at the time. That win looks worse and worse and worse every single week. You barely kind of beat Florida with 5 interceptions thrown. That offense has got some problems. I want to talk about that more in a second. Miami, okay, I understand where they're at, right? But also you're kind of looking at South Florida, which is, they got hyped up over beating a overrated Boise team. They beat a bad Florida team. Notre Dame's 0-2, so you could start discounting those wins. when you talk about Ohio State, like you mentioned, that Texas win, it's starting to look worse and worse. Arch Manning they're having, like, instead of a Heisman competition, they're having an overrated competition with him and DJ Lagaungale or whatever they call him now. So, like, they're having an overrated competition there. So, man, it's just to me right now, like you said, man, even Illinois, who's at number 9, they beat Duke 45-19. They just lost to Tulane.
They beat Duke.
When you talk about the teams that have that big statement win, the one team that has continued to look better since that loss has been Alabama.
Yep.
And so really that's the thing, is like, that's why as you said, Florida State to me has the best win in college football right now when you look at what Alabama has done since they lost. Now, the other thing I will say is when you go back to last week, Florida State had an identical resume to the number 1 team, Ohio State, right? Yep. They had a top 10 win at home and a 70-point blowout over an FCS team. Ohio State was 1, Florida State was 10. That's preseason bias. That's all that is. Yeah. So there was no reason Florida State should be number 2. Maybe you don't bump them to number 2 when they didn't play.
Right.
But at the same time, man, there's just so many problems with this. And like I said, I don't want to spend a ton of time griping about the polls again, but man, it's worth being griped about because there's a lot of problems here. Alabama, just in case you were wondering, does come in at 14. So again, your win keeps looking a little bit better there.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech gets ranked here at 18th. But Michael, here's one of my concerns right now, looking at our schedule and these rankings, is, man, that Miami game is so massively important. And I don't want to look ahead past Virginia and all that stuff. There's a very, very good chance that's going to be the last ranked team on your schedule. When you look at the rest of the teams going forward, you need to win that game, because that's going to be a huge resume booster for you. Because right now, man, we'll talk about this going forward with some of the schedule stuff here. But, man, the rest of your schedule is not doing so well right now. And so that's the other thing. The way has been paved for Florida State to compete for Charlotte and potentially a playoff spot, just by looking at how you've looked versus how the teams on your schedule have looked. But, yeah, man, I think to bring it back to what you said, Florida State has one of the best resumes in the country right now. But you know what? They're going to have a chance to earn that over the course of the season. After that Miami game, if you're 5-0, there's no question you should be, as I think Jeff said, we should be number 1. You should realistically be number 1, at worst number 2 in the country if you're 5-0 at that point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree. And again, I mean, the frustrating thing about the poll is that it's supposed to measure the best teams in the country cumulative of the season. Not the best team of the country, cumulative of last season coming into this season. It's supposed to be the best team of the best top 25 teams in the country, cumulative of this season. And when you look at this season, I mean, honestly, the only other team that has one of the best wins in the country, and it was an overtime, and we're going to talk about this game later. It was an overtime kick for the 9th time with Georgia beating Tennessee. Other than that, because Tennessee's a pretty decent team. Other than that, Florida State has the best win of the season, like hands down. And the reason we keep saying that is because look at what Alabama has done since that butt whooping, right? They got punished real bad for getting their butt whooped to Florida State. They got dropped all the way down to 21. Then what did they do? They only went out and dominated whoever they played. I can't remember prior to
ULM and then Wisconsin, yeah.
And then and I watched the entire Bama-Wisconsin game and just smacked them. I mean, just discarded them like a dirty dog they found on the side of the street. Like, it was done and over with. Bama looked real good, right? So you have to say that this wasn't a fluke. Florida State didn't just beat a bad Bama team. And so they have the best win in the country. So legitimately, I could make an argument that they should be in the top 2, if not 1 right now. But I get it. It's what it is. If they handle what they're supposed to handle against Kent State and they blow them out, if they go to Charlotte and take care of Charlotte and win comfortably there, and if they beat Miami in Doak Campbell Stadium, hopefully a night game, they unequivocally deserve to be the number 1 ranked team in the country. Now, will they do it?
No,
but
they won't. They won't. And that's the thing, man, is this is why I say, like, the unfortunate part is I think that this 3-week stretch of the schedule is good for the program, right? It's good for Florida State. It's good to help you throughout the tail end of the season. what it's bad for is it doesn't move the needle with anything.
Right.
And we knew that. We knew that coming in. You were going to have a big test and you were going to have a lull of just kind of nothingness for 3 weeks. And yeah, you're still playing. Yeah, you're still beating them, but you're not really doing anything for your resume in these 3 weeks. That's why I'm ready for them to go up to Charlottesville and to play Virginia. I'm ready for them to get that Miami game at home because, man, this team still is definitely being doubted, right? They're not being given a whole lot of credit because I'm looking at right now the odds to win the ACC. Florida State has the 4th best odds behind Clemson to win the ACC. Now, I get it. Clemson hasn't lost technically an ACC game yet, but they don't look like they're going to win many ACC games. And so to have them ahead of us still in the odds, that's just kind of crazy. So, yeah, again, man, I'm ready to see Florida State. Now, some places they're tied, but according right now to ESPN, we are actually 4th at plus 600 to win the ACC. Miami is 1, Georgia Tech is 2, Clemson is 3, we are 4, and Louisville is 5. Okay. So I think it should be Miami probably 1, Florida State 2, Georgia Tech 3, then Clemson at 4. So yeah, again, I'm ready for this team to be able to go prove themselves against somebody else, someone with, a little bit more of a pulse here. But Michael, let's turn our focus to a little bit of the current events. Let's talk about this week 3 stuff, some updates from Mike Norvell as Florida State gets ready to go against Kent State here. So when we talk about this, Mike Norvell met with the press today, and look, he talked about this bye week has helped build continuity on this team with all the new pieces that you have. Remember, there's a lot of guys that were transfers. There are a lot of guys that are freshmen that are contributing on this team. You also have a lot of guys who were out during spring, so you missed a lot of that opportunity to build that momentum and things like that. And so to hear how useful the bye week has been in just that part alone, continuity among the coaching staff. They said they also challenged them with some physical and some challenging, some competitive environments this week. That is also something that I like to hear. So it's like they got in good work, but they also were able to kind of get some rest. And one thing that he said is they gave them an extra day of rest, and you could see the extra bounce in their legs. It's a long season. You got to stay fresh. You got to get guys healthy. And so overall, man, there's not a whole lot to say about the bye week. Sometimes you worry about rest versus rust. I don't think you're worried about that against a team like Kent State. But, man, overall, I think it was good to see them get this bye week to get a little bit healthy because, honestly, man, it's kind of a twofold thing, right? We've been fortunate with the injury bug that nothing has been serious, but we've also had a lot of minor injuries. And so I think this actually came at a good time and also have an opponent on the backside that maybe you don't need to risk guys to go out and get this win. So I thought it was a well-timed bye week. Although it's really early in the season, I thought it's good for Florida State to come right now with Kent State on the backside.
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about this in the preseason, how we really didn't like the way the schedule lined up because you'd love to have this bye week kind of like right before you go into that last, kind of leg of the season against, Clemson, Virginia Tech, NC State, and at Florida, at Clemson and at Florida. But the way the season has gone so far, it actually, I feel much better about having this bye week, especially with the minor injuries that came out of that East Texas A&M game. So now you get an opportunity to rest those guys for 2 weeks, basically, because, hopefully you shouldn't need them against Kent State here. And then, you'll see where you kind of are at Virginia. Hopefully you can get a couple of them back for Virginia. Make sure you got them. But you definitely want to have them ready to go for that Miami game. Right. You want to be full strength because Miami looks decent this year. And so but with that bye week, I really appreciate it listening to Mike Norvell on this press conference talking about how there's 2 ways to work. There's actual work where you get after it, and then there's work to rest. And he felt the team, he said they did a really good job of doing both, getting some really good work in on that Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday morning, getting some workouts in, and then having Friday and Saturday off. He said when he came back, he asked all the players to raise their hand who had a chance to watch college football, and every player in the room raised their hand. And so even him as coaches, they went out recruiting, they did some stuff, and then Saturday they were able to just kind of take it in. They got back to work on Sunday. He was really happy with the practice on Sunday, and now they're in the game week as well. That's a good bye week. That's a bye week where no one got injured. You were able to get in some good work, right? What we talked about. You got able to do some of that spring stuff. Maybe you didn't get a chance to do because you had a kind of a truncated spring. With the campus shooting and everything. So you were able to get some of that work in, and now you're back in the game week there. There was a conversation that Mike had where he talked about how they were able to get some Virginia work in during this week as well. And well, he didn't specifically say Virginia, but he mentioned a couple programs. And so based on analysis and deduction, he's talking about Virginia and about Miami. And I love that. I love that they were looking forward to a little bit of that, not overlooking Kent State, but just saying, hey, we have an opportunity here to do some advanced work here.
Right, because again, you can never overlook anybody.
Right.
You don't want to find yourself in a Clemson-Troy situation, right? Where you're maybe looking ahead to a different game, and then you find yourself down 16-0. Look, Clemson's got other problems. That's why they ended up down 16-0.
Right.
But the one thing with this, like you said, you have an opportunity to kind of look ahead to get to some Kent or to get to some Virginia install. I love that he doesn't say the program's names, right? He does not say Miami or Florida. So it's cool that he says that. But they're probably doing some install because they know how big that game is coming up on the other side. They also know you can't go on the road and lay an egg there. So just want to take a couple comments here as people are starting to roll in. Our guy Jeremy from Rock and Knoll is stopped by, says, "What's up, my friends? Keep doing great things. Go Knowles." We appreciate you stopping by, Jeremy. We're going to try and get together and do something with Jeremy. He's got a YouTube channel as well. Make sure you check that out. Is the freshman Wynn able to play this week? I have not heard that. He was not listed on the depth chart.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound hopeful that he's going to be able to play. I would love to see him be able to be back by the UVA game. I think you're going to want that depth for going, later in the season, especially against like Miami or something like that. But hopefully that's not his first game back. But you would like to see him be able to get back here. As Jeff mentions, Virginia plays Stanford this weekend. Jeff, we're going to talk about that game here in just a second. We're definitely keeping our eye on every single team. And as Henry says here, this is huge news that Mike Norvell got to share today. Ethan Pritchard, freshman linebacker, did open his eyes today. Guys, that is awesome news. I mean, I am far from a doctor, but I've been a paramedic for about 15 years. And so to hear something like that after the injury that he took, man, that's massive news. That is huge. So we're continuing to pray for Ethan, and I hope you guys are as well. What's up to Mike here? Says, "What's up, fellas in chat? Go Knowles." Definitely, Knowles. Man. Appreciate you being here. And Mike Barr says, "Hello, PTS. Great show from Panama City Beach, Florida. What a beautiful town, man. Let us know where you guys are watching from in the comments here. Love to see it." Michael, as you know, is in Orlando. I'm up here in the Carolinas. Michael, I'll tell you one thing, man. It's fall up here, buddy. It is like we're talking about 50s in the morning, highs of like 80s in the afternoon, man. It's been great. It's like I'm ready to get out on the smoker on Saturday when Kent State plays. I'm gonna try to get some ribs on the smoker.
Oh, that sounds so good.
Oh yeah, man. It's that time. It's fall. Fall is here, and I love that as well. I know it's supposed to be like 93 in Tallahassee, so y'all still sweating down a little bit down there in Florida, man. But yeah, so it's great. To have the fall weather and have football back to talk about. Also, one thing, guys, if you're watching in the chat, let me know. We're going to start talking about our week 3 reactions. We got some coaching firings that happened. We got a couple of upsets here. We got some big games. I just want to know if you guys enjoy the national talk, right? Because this is something that we like to expand upon here at Plant the Spear. We like to we're not going to go talk about maybe a MAC game on Thursday night, right? But we like to talk about the biggest games of the week, and it's easiest to keep it here with you guys. And I know you guys probably like to hear about it as well. So just let me know if this is something you want. We want to keep it 99% Florida State, but we like talking national picture as well too. So Michael, I'll throw it to you, and then we're going to get to Jeff's super chat here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we love to keep up, just kind of what's going on in the national scene, where everybody's at, seeing what's doing, just to keep a relevance there. Now, the one question I do have, Jesse, is we talk about a little bit of this game, this Kent State game. Did you see the depth chart coming out from Florida State this week?
I haven't checked it yet.
Okay, so let me just tell you what our boys over in Tallahassee have done. So they released their depth chart, which is normal, but this time instead of the normal 3-3-5 alignment that they're releasing, they've released a 4-3-5 alignment. Okay. Yeah, they have a DE, nose tackle, defensive end. Right. Then the 3 linebacking positions, the Mike, Sam, and the Jack. Then they got the 2 corners, the 2 safeties, and a rover. So they're planning on playing 12 players this weekend, just so you know.
Hey, I like it. Whatever it takes to win. Just don't get caught.
Whatever it takes to win.
We know the ACC refs can't count anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But that's the funny thing, man. I don't pay really almost no attention to the depth charts. That's why I really don't look at them, because guys that are listed don't play. Guys that are aren't listed do play. So it's just, you just never know, man. But Jeff comes in with a super chat. We appreciate that. Jeff says, I just want to get our starters in and out quickly as possible, get our backup players in as quickly as possible so we can rest. Jeff, I'm wholeheartedly with you when we talk about that Kent State game, and we're going to do a Kent State preview later on in this episode. I'm with you, man. I think this is one where you want to continue to get those first teamers, those reps, to get in sync and to get on the same page schematically and timing wise. But you also want to be careful because we saw some injuries pile up in that East Texas A&M game. So I'd like to get them out as much as possible. You know, again, we're going to talk about this game later, but one thing I'd like to see is you kind of hone in on your starters or your backups that you're going to play this week. Like once you get the starters out, I don't need to see 90 players this week. Let me see like 60 of the guys who are going to be the most important going through the rest of the season. But Michael, so real quick here, they're watching us in Columbus, Ohio. We got Tallahassee, Florida in the house, Fort Lauderdale.
Let's go.
We got Atlanta. So all over the place here. Appreciate you guys watching there. Man, Rock and Roll says he was at the Tennessee-Georgia game, and it was crazy. He said he feels bad for their kicker. I would too. That guy, when you say deer fights, he looked like a deer staring down a Mack truck. That poor kid, man, that was he was never going to make that. You saw the picture where they zoomed in on his face mask?
Yeah.
That poor kid. I mean, granted, he ended up making the one to send them to overtime.
But, it's the same kick. That's what I was about to say. It's the same exact kick from the same exact distance, from the same exact hash mark, going the same exact direction. And he makes it the second time. And I just thought, gosh, man, like that's got to be terrible.
Oh, man. You know that guy felt just awful because it's like this is now 9 times in a row they lost to Georgia. And you did. You know, we were talking about this because, as most of you know, my wife's a Georgia fan, so we had the game on. We watched it and all that stuff. And it's like, I feel so bad for the kicker because, technically you could say, right, he did cost them the game.
Yeah.
But it's hard to blame a guy for 5 seconds of a play when you had 59 minutes and 55 seconds to win the game and you didn't. So you put it on his back. So, you know, I mean, it is what it is. But I bet that game was absolutely insane to be at 103,000, all that type of stuff. So a bunch of sad Tennessee fans. But Jeff actually brings us to a good transition point here when he talks about Billy Napier is going to get fired probably sooner than later. And we might want some of those players that go to the portal from Florida to come play for us as a real football team. I love that. Yes, definitely. That's where I want to transition now, right? Because there have been some firings and that does open up some things. There are also a couple of things coaching-wise that we're going to talk about when you get to the national picture here. And so good thing Mike says he enjoys the national talk. Again, guys, this is just our outlet to kind of have fun with college football in general. It's a lot of work to start a whole nother channel just to do national talk, so we want to talk with you guys about it on here. My guy Henry says he resides in Fort Washington, Maryland, born and raised in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He is going to be at the UVA game, so can't wait to see Henry. We're going to meet up at the tailgate there. Lakeland, Florida in the house. Man, appreciate you guys coming in and rocking with us on the show. So, Michael, let's talk about some of these updates with these coaches getting fired. As we mentioned, UCLA, their coach is out. Virginia Tech, Brent Pry is out. Whew, boy, that is a program on fire right now.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that more in a second. And then you also have the portal opens for these teams. And so you also have decommitments in the recruiting world. Someone's to watch here, Johnny Jones, 4-star offensive tackle from Bradenton, Florida, just decommitted from UCLA. Florida State has had him on campus. They were already going after him. I'm sure that's someone that they're going to pursue very heavily. You also have a 2026 3-star DN. I don't want to try and say his name, Michael.
God.
God. Okay.
Yeah.
Is visiting for the Kent State game after decommitting. So you're already kind of seeing the tea leaves or the ripple effect of these things happening kind of trickle down to programs all across the country.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a kid who decommits from a program in California already being looked at by a program in Florida. So it tells you how fast they move on these guys. But the other thing that I want to talk about here is because it's early in the season for these guys. And one of the things I will say is anyone who enters the portal now, because they've only played 4 games or really 3, they can redshirt. So there's going to be a lot of guys where this year doesn't count. They're probably going to hit the portal. And some of those teams, and Virginia Tech is one that you play, those teams could realistically fall apart. I mean, it could get really, really bad for some of these teams if the players start opting out and leaving and entering the portal. But Michael, I think the one top conversation besides who we're just watching to pick off, like if Florida happens to fire Billy Napier, I'm sure we're going to try and flip some of them recruits. I'm sure we're going to try and get some of them kids out of the portal there. But the one thing to keep your eye on right now is that UCLA job, right? Tony White's name has already been a name that's been mentioned for that. It is his alma mater, so I'm sure there is interest there. It is a Power 4 job. It is in the Big Ten. But Michael, if and I'm not here to tell Tony White what job to take and what not. He obviously has a personal connection to California and UCLA. If I were his agent, I would tell him, let's just wait, because that UCLA program is an absolute dumpster fire. They have been operating, I think, over the last 6 to 10 years at a $200 million deficit. They don't have good NIL. If you just watched the last game, there was about 3 people in the stands, and they were probably going for the New Mexico team in that game. It's just not. I don't think it's the next move is not always the best move, right? And so I think Tony White, if he stays at Florida State, whether it be a different opportunity after this year, we knew we were probably only going to get 1 to 2 years with Tony White if he did good anyway. Man, I just don't think I would take that UCLA job if I were him. But I do think that is a job just to kind of keep your eye on, right? Because he is connected to that. I think Mike Norvell's smart in bringing on Zach Arnett, because I think he's kind of already grooming the next 3-3-5 defensive coordinator if Tony White were to leave, because I think he knows he's not going to get him for long. But his name has been tied to that job. It's not a good job, but you can't predict what someone's going to do at the end of the day.
Yeah, listen, if Tony White is thinking with his heart, he's gone after the season to UCLA.
Yeah.
That, like, I mean, because like it'd be like Florida State going 0 for whatever, and then them calling you or me to come be their head coach. Are we turning it down with our heart? If we're thinking about it with our heart, are we turning it down? Probably not, right? But if Tony White is thinking with his mind, if he's looking at the program and just said, they literally just fired another alumnus, right? Because Deshaun Foster played at UCLA. They fired him after what? So he went 5-7 last year. They're 0-3 this year, right? If I'm correct, 0-3 this year, right? So they fired him after 15 games. That's all he
and
had.
That's the guy they chose over you.
That's the guy they chose over you. So they might think, oh, we made a mistake, we should go get Tony. But Tony, they're operating at a $200+ million deficit. They have little to no NIL money. That stadium, while it's one of the more iconic stadiums in the country, the granddaddy of them all, as Keith Jackson used to say, man, it's one of the hardest places to get to. UCLA it's not USC. It's not the Hollywood. It's hard to recruit to. They haven't had a top end recruiting class in a long time. I mean, Nico was their best recruit, and they basically stole him from Tennessee. And Tennessee was like, bah, right?
Yeah.
Like, get out of here. And so, again, if I'm Tony and I'm thinking with my head, I'm thinking, okay, man, if first of all, I need to focus on this season. And if we do what I think we can do, we're going to end in a special place. And some of the best jobs are going to come open. Like, I wouldn't want him to go to Florida. I don't want him, like, not like the guy. But I'm just saying, Florida is a much better job than UCLA. A much better job, right?
Yeah.
There are some other programs that might end up coming. I mean, who's to say? Like, I know this sounds wild and crazy because he won 2 national titles and all that stuff, but I mean, this could be the season that Dabble says, you know what, I'm just done with all this Clemson stuff. I need a fresh start. And if Clemson comes open, Clemson has now become a good job to be at, right? And so, like, man, you can wait and get the best job. And if the best job's not out there, man, then you don't have to go be a head coach this season, right? I'm just saying, like, if he thinks with his head, he won't take that job. But if he thinks with his heart, then we'll be looking for a new D coordinator.
Probably. And again, like you said, man, it's just not a great situation. And there's going to be a lot of jobs that are going to come open later in the season. I mean, Sam Pittman could be fired at Arkansas.
That's
got the Florida job. Again, I would hate to see him take that. And it's not like he doesn't make $2 million a year. So it's not like he's hurting for money or anything. It's not a money thing like that. To KDC or KCD here, no, we do not want Nico. I'm sure Tennessee fans are pretty glad they got rid of him. Man, it's crazy, right? That whole situation is absolutely.
Well, I think it goes to show you too, Jesse. It goes to show you. I think Florida State was the epitome of this is what happens when you have a bad QB who also has a bad collection of players, right? That's what Florida State showed you. What UCLA is showing you is Tennessee covered up a lot of bad from Nico. That offense, what they run with Josh Heupel there, it's electric. I mean, we watched the game with Georgia. When that thing is moving, it is humming. And any quarterback, I mean, my grandma could quarterback that offense the way it's humming, right? But when you take Nico out of that and you put him in a regular whatever system they're running at UCLA, he looks pedestrian. He looks normal. I mean, he didn't have a bad game this last one, but he looks average. He doesn't look that great. And so, the question is it the system or is it the quarterback? And in this case, for Nico, it was the system that made him look so good.
Yeah, I heard a stat today, I think it was, that Joey Aguilar had more deep passes in the Georgia game than Nico had all of last season. And so it's like, man, he's just not good. And you go out there for less money. And it was all about, they didn't do enough around me.
Yeah.
So you went to UCLA?
Right?
Are you serious? He's probably demanding that his dad's going to be the coach next. So who knows? But let's move on and let's talk about some of these week 3 games, man. As we talked about with that Bama win looking better and better, that's where I want to start. Is Bama bounces back and crushes Wisconsin 38-14. They covered the spread in that game, man. I actually – so sick. South Florida let me down on some parlays this weekend, man. But I took Bama with the points at a 20-point spread. Yep. I took Bama at 20 because I knew this game was going to be ugly. But yeah, I mean, you look at they beat Wisconsin 38-14. Look, Wisconsin's not a good team, but they're a Power 4 team. They play in the Big Ten. They're a okay team. They're not a Wake Forest. They're not a complete bottom feeder. They're kind of one of those mid-tier teams, right? They beat them 42-10 last year, so you just kind of wanted to see what they did against them this year. So you cover the spread. You beat them 38-14. Ty Simpson in that game, 23 of 43, 254, 2 touchdowns. Bama's starting to look like they're hitting their stride, right? Ryan Williams had some big plays in there. They still don't have a lot of the injured guys back that they're going to get later on down the season. They get a bye week, and then they go to Georgia. They go to Athens to play Georgia, so that'll be a really big game there. But, man, when you talk about what Florida State was able to do against this Bama team, and then you look at what they've done since. Now, I'm not really giving you a whole lot for the UL Monroe game, but you handled it like you're supposed to, 70-0. Yep. That's what you wanted to see. But then here's what's crazy, man. So when you talk about Ty Simpson, turns out he actually is kind of good, right? So against FSU, he was – against FSU, he was 23 of 43 for 254 and 2 touchdowns. I gave the wrong stat there. Since FSU, he's 41 of 46 with 608 yards and 7 touchdowns. The dude is basically Joe Montana, unless he's playing Florida State's defense. So, man, it's just that's the thing is that win keeps looking better and better. And now that they have a bye week and then they go to Georgia, if they go and win that game, then I think, like you said, man, unequivocally, Florida State at that point has to have the best win in the country if they go and beat this Georgia team. Bama has allowed 185 rushing yards in the past 2 games. Florida State rushed for 230 against them. So, again, man, I understand those 2 opponents are nowhere near what Florida State is, at least right now, as the number 7 team in the country. But the way you did Bama and the way they did the 2 teams afterwards, they look like they are maybe not a bad team like everybody made them out to be. Florida State just might be good. And I think that's the takeaway from that. So, again, we'll see how that win looks. Obviously, we get Kent State this week. Hopefully, you go handle business. They're on a bye. You won't learn anything there. But that next week, man, if they were to beat Georgia and you were to go handle your business on the road against Virginia, setting up that Miami game, again, Florida State has a chance to really make a case for being the best team in the country when you look at that, when you look at the resume so far.
Yeah. I mean, I want to give you this stat here. So Ty Simpson is the 8th most efficient passer in the nation through 3 weeks. Okay. He has a passer efficient rating of 186.64, 862 yards, basically 72% completion rate, which is 18th in the country, 9 touchdowns, which is tied 3rd in the country, 9.7 yards per pass attempts, which is 12th in the nation, and 287.3 yards, which is almost 19th is 19th, and no interceptions. And Florida State and Tony White had that boy seeing ghosts. Had him seeing DTs and DNs and corners where there wasn't. I mean, how many wide open runs he had against Wisconsin where he actually ran it instead of throwing it into nowhere? Why? Because against Florida State, he had wide open runs and was throwing the ball to people who was wearing Seminole jerseys. Like that's the thing. So that goes to show you that this kid and this team is better than what people said they were after they got beat down by Florida State, which means that either that was a fluke or Florida State might be better than what people thought they were going to be, including me, thought they were going to be as good.
Yeah, and there was nothing fluky about that win. So I think you kind of throw that out the window. And yeah, man, that's the thing is it was an overreaction because of preseason expectations, which is again why you need to dump preseason expectations and preseason rankings. Florida State might just be one of the best teams in the country, and also Alabama might be one of the best teams in the country. But on that Saturday, they just got spanked, and so
it happens.
Yeah, that just it happens, and it continues to look better. Like we said, we already know, if they beat Georgia or something like that, they're going to come out of that game and they're going to go, "Well, Florida, it's not the same Alabama that they played in week 1." So we'll see. But then if you beat Miami, no one can really say anything because I hate to see Miami get any hype, but the more they blow that team up, the better that win's going to look if you can go do it. A couple things here where Henry says UGA defense is weak. We're going to talk about that UGA Tennessee game in just a minute. Their pass defense probably had some dog fans looking for the dog house in the first half because those boys were nervous when they went down 21-7. And no, I don't see UVA beating us. But again, you're talking about a step up in competition on the road on a Friday night. You should beat that game or you should win that game, but sometimes things happen, right? Sometimes things do. You just want to go up there and handle your business like you're supposed to. But, Michael, the next game that I want to talk about, week 3 reaction, Miami blows out South Florida 49-12. Look, man, credit where credit is due, right? Miami looks good this year, right? They look like one of the best teams in the country. I can't take that away from them. I'm still interested to see what they do when they play against some tougher teams. I don't really know where Notre Dame is at right now. I think obviously Notre Dame is 0-2. I don't think they're a terrible team. I don't think it's like playing Wake Forest. So I give them credit for that win. I will say that I think the USF win may be overblown a little bit when you're talking about beating a preseason ranked Boise State team. They had done nothing at the time to earn that ranking. And then the UF win, while it was good, it just keeps looking worse and worse. I mean, anytime you're a team like South Florida, right, and you go into the swamp and you beat a team like Florida, that's a good win. That's a program building win for that team, for Alex Golish and for South Florida. But that win keeps looking worse and worse and worse. Now, the thing is, Miami didn't go in there and win that game 34-17. They beat the brakes off of them, 49-12. So I will give them that. Carson Beck looks better than I expected him to. So I think at the end of the day, man, that game on, coming up early October, I don't want to look past the Miami one, or excuse me, the Virginia one, but that's going to be a huge game because, again, I hate doing it. It just makes me sick to even say it. Miami looks pretty good. Florida State looks really good too. And that's going to be an epic game when they come to town. Now, of course, they got Florida on Saturday. We're going to see how that game goes. That's probably going to not be a good one. Really don't understand how they got game day for that either. That seems kind of weird to have a undefeated team against a 1-3 team. I don't know about that, especially when they know, if things go like they should, game day will probably be in Tallahassee for Florida State, Miami anyway. So I really don't understand. I don't understand that their decision to do that, especially when you had like Texas Tech, Utah, a top 20 matchup there as well. But yeah, man, again, credit to Miami. I hate to give them any credit at all, but I think Carson Beck is better than I expected. I think their defense is better than it was last year. The receivers, for kind of being a bunch of, I don't want to say nobodies, but not the top level guys that they had last year, have been playing well. But again, I still am ready to see them. When you go back to, okay, they have some ranked wins. They beat South Florida. They beat Notre Dame. They also played Bethune-Cookman. They also played a G5 team. That was a ranked win against a G5 team that got ranked from beating a bad Florida team. It's not like you went out and beat a ranked Power 4 team. So I need to see a little bit more on them. But, we'll see how things go against Florida this week. And we'll see what Florida, if they can even put up a fight in that game. If they blow out Florida, then I'll give them credit. I mean, again, Florida doesn't look good, but blowing out a Power 5 opponent in a kind of rivalry game there, we'll see how they look. But credit to Miami. I mean, they handled their business like they're supposed to.
Yeah, they did. They handled what they were supposed to. They won 49-12. And, USF's offense just didn't look like it had looked against Boise and Florida. It looked more very high schoolish, very pedestrian, kind of super predictable. You kind of knew what they were going to do. And yet that defense, yes, they gave up, 49 points, but they picked off Carson Beck twice in this
I
game.
did see in that one was a tip ball and one he got hit when he threw it. So I don't want to give Miami any credit. Hey, he threw 2 picks. Screw that guy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I did see that. So I'm not going to give him too much crap for that.
Yeah. I mean, a pick's a pick. Doesn't matter how I got it. If they tipped the ball and they intercepted it, that means the receiver didn't get
right. But it's not on the quarterback. It's not on Carson Beck.
The stats say it's on him. I mean, they're going to give it to him.
If it was Tommy Castellanos in a tip drill, we'd be on here saying it wasn't on Tommy. So
no, I would say that was on Tommy. No, I would say it's on
fair.
Tommy. I'm just saying, like, I mean, they picked the ball off. They hit him. They got to him. They hit him. They caused him to get off his launch, his whatever they call it, the QB launch area, whatever. And he threw a bad ball and he got hit and he got intercepted. So all I'm saying is that UCF defense was able to get to Beck. And that's going to be really important for Florida to do as well. Like if they want to try to win this game, they're going to have to try to get to Beck. The problem is it's been a little bit hard, but USF showed a little bit of that as well too. But Miami did win. They did win going away. They brought USF back to earth now. Some of us may have been praying for the trifecta that they would pull this win off, but it didn't happen as well. And so again, I'm not trying to look forward to Miami. I hope both teams come in undefeated. But Florida State has some business to take care of. They got to beat Kent State. They got to beat them bad. And they got to go to Charlottesville and beat Virginia. Miami has to take care of Florida that they get at home as well. And then I think they get the bye week before they play Florida State as well, too. So we also have to think about that, too, that Miami is coming off a bye week as well, going to be rested up, right? And so they're going to have a little bit more kind of energy advantage, whereas Florida State's going to be coming off a Friday game, even though they, technically get that Saturday off as well, too. So we'll see how that all kind of fleshes itself out.
Yeah. You get an extra day, but they get an extra week. And so I don't love that. But you get the home field advantage. But no, I just think, like, when you talk about a tip ball, I just don't put that on the quarterback. And also, I will say that Carson Beck had a clean pocket 83.3% of the time. So they only had 1 sack on him in that game. So that's going to be a challenge because they have a good offensive line. So you have to be able to get penetration. You cannot let him sit back there and pick you apart because if nothing else, he's been efficient this year. And that's really kind of what you want out of your quarterback. So we knew he was kind of a game manager at Georgia a little bit there. So now he's kind of he's been pretty good. And so that you're going to be in for a street fight in that game. You're going to be in for a dog fight in that game. Now, Jeff comes in with another super chat. We appreciate that, Jeff, and says, we know the media love affair bias that they have for Notre Dame every year, and they haven't won anything since Lou Holtz was there in 1988. There's a couple of teams when you talk about preseason bias. Ohio State has always won. Notre Dame has always won. Alabama is always won. Well, at least since the Saban era. They're always going to get the love in the polls, regardless of what they've done or not. So that is one it's frustrating. I just don't get it. Like they see the name, the logo, and they love to do it. Henry says he would love to see UF upset Miami. Can they both lose? I think that's really can we end in a tie? It's like a non-conference game. I think that's really what I want, is just for both of them to lose. I think it's hard, you can't cheer for one or the other, right? You want both to lose, but I think it's better for Miami to win because the chances of Florida being ranked at the end of the season are slim to none. And Miami is probably going to be a good ranked win for you, or a good ranked game for you anyway, if you can go get that win. But the next game I want to talk to is about Florida. They fall to LSU 20-10. DJ Lagway throws 5 picks in this game, and it's not even like a tip ball interception where maybe one of us credits the quarterback with it, one of us don't. It was like he was looking for the most covered receiver and trying to throw it in between 2 or 3 guys. It was just, I think the 5th pick, there was a screenshot of where there's 3 guys in a triangle around the UF receiver, and that was the throw that you thought was the best. It's funny because when you look back to last year, a lot of us tried to we were like, okay, well, he's got 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. This isn't, what are we doing here talking about preseason Heisman for this guy? Right. I understand, he led them to a bunch of wins and things like that, but it was kind of like, man, I don't know. This was, like I said, with the record, you beat a bunch of terrible teams last year, us being one of them. And so I'm not exactly surprised that he hasn't been great. He was out for most of the spring. He missed part of fall with injury, but man, to throw 5 interceptions, that was just awful. Florida rushed for 2.9 yards per carry. This offense has all kinds of problems. The play calling is atrocious. Napier has doubled down on calling the plays. And the reason why I say, man, that's got to be frustrating for this defense is when you talk about Florida's defense, they've only given up 2 touchdown drives this season, and yet they're sitting here at 1-2. That's got to be frustrating when you're basically holding up your end of the deal and the offense is just giving the ball away 5-6 times a game. But, man, here's the problem for Florida. 7 of the final 9 games are against teams currently ranked in the top 15.
Yeesh.
It's only going to get worse for Florida going throughout the season. You had thought maybe if they were able to rebound and beat LSU, maybe they could get this thing back on the road. Then they go do that, and, man, I think it gets worse and worse from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I don't know if somebody told DJ it was Christmas and that the LSU people, were on the good list. I don't know what it was, but he was just handing out interceptions like it was payday against LSU.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, it you know what this reminds me of a little bit? It reminds me of last year's Florida State team, where in the first half of the game, that defense played as hard as they could possibly. Like, I'll give Adam Fuller credit to that. That defense was ready. At the beginning of most of every game, they were in it.
Yeah.
And then it just, after watching the offense throw brick after brick, get stonewalled after stonewall, wide receivers dropping passes, offensive linemen missing blocking assignments, all of that. After a while, you're just like, man, what is even the point of this right now? And so I think that's what you're kind of seeing with Florida. They're looking at this offense like, what are you doing? Like, why do we keep finding ourselves? They're in the game. I mean, they only lost by the third best team in the country, Jesse, by 10 points at LSU. That, Death Valley, the scariest place on earth, right? They only lost by 10 points in that game. And the only reason that they're even in the game, Florida's in this game, is because of this defense, right? And so, and then you look at the rest of the schedule. Now, I will caveat to say that last year they were in a kind of similar thing where they were kind of flailing, and then they went on to win what was it, the last 5 or 6 straight games or whatever it was, something like that. So again, it's not out of the realm for Billy Napier to get this team going again. But it's looking very daunting at this point, especially with a quarterback that looks like he's regressed in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he does not look good. The play calling is not helping. They got no real run game to really bail him out. And so it's kind of all bad. I mean, and like we said, man, that schedule just gets tough because it's funny. This comment says, Florida will go 1-11 this season. I sure hope so. I pray for their downfall every day, so I hope it does happen. And with all the hype behind them, like Henry says, that's what's really kind of funny to watch. When I look at that schedule, man, even the unranked team, the Mississippi State, they just beat Arizona State. They just won a top 15 game, so that's not a give me. Kentucky, they kind of suck, but at the same time, Kentucky's beat them 3 out of the last 4 meetings. Right. So you got to beat them too, man. They very well. I hope they got their shots in when we went 2-10, because it seems like 2-10 or 1-11 might be loaded in the chamber for them, and it's not going to be good. And we'll be here pulling receipts and loving it. Jeff chimes in with another super chat. We appreciate that. Jeff says, calling right now, the only win the Gators are going to have this season is that first game. Worse record than we did last year. Man, one can only hope. That's what we want to happen to Florida, because it's always funny to watch them guys go through the tough times. Michael, did you see where Brian Kelly went off on the reporter?
I heard about this, but I didn't actually get to see it. I don't know what happened.
Okay, so the guy comes in and he's feeling, Brian Kelly's feeling good. They just beat Florida at home. Everything's going good. They're a good team. They're up there ranked. And the guy basically comes off the top rope straight in out of the hey, welcome to the press conference. By the way, how come you can't run the ball very good? And then Brian Kelly goes off on him. And then he says something about well, what about third downs? How come you aren't doing very good on? And he's like, Brian Kelly's like, well, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? We just beat Florida. And so you want me to beat them by 70? Now, I will say this. I say all that to set this up. It is kind of funny to see, right? It's just funny to watch the Brian Kelly frustration there. And the question, I think, was fair because it's, give the guy a medal. Like, you're asking the tough questions that the fans probably want to hear. Maybe you don't lead with that question after a win.
The first question.
Maybe you bury that about 5-6 questions in. But I say all that to bring it back to this point, Michael. Here's what's really the most interesting about LSU, right? Top 5 team in the country, undefeated. Everything's looking good. That's a good defense. They are ranked 117th in rushing offense. Michael, guess who their run game coordinator is? The one Alex can't develop anybody, Atkins. That's a pretty interesting takeaway there. My dude was looking sad in the box on
I
Saturday
saw that
against
picture.
Florida.
He looked depressed.
He had about as much life in him as his offensive lines did at Florida State. So I just had to kind of dunk on Atkins there for a second because, man, for everything going good for LSU, it ain't Pat Payton and it ain't Alex Atkins.
Listen, that defense, I'll give credit where credit is due. That defense looks like one of the best defenses in the country. Watching them, I mean, I think it's Baker is his name, the new D coordinator there, Blake Baker. I mean, he's doing a good job of getting that defense, despite having a loafer on his team and Pat Payton. Okay, but he's doing a good job of getting that defense. So credit where credit is due. That offense looks atrocious. I mean, I thought Nussmeier was supposed to be this Heisman level thing. We should have known when they got shut out in the first half against Clemson. Then they went scored 17 unanswered points. The nation started anointing as a complete team, a whole complete team. And then they came out against Florida and did basically the same thing. And I'm not saying Florida has a terrible defense, but Florida's defense ain't nothing to write home about.
Right.
They're struggling. They can't run the ball to save their life. So you went out and hired the guy who couldn't coach your offensive line last year to save his life as your run game coordinator. It's no wonder your run game is struggling, that your offensive line is struggling. He might not have a job before the end of the season if it keeps going the way it is. And remember, Solomon Thomas went there because he said he was going to get developed there, at LSU. I don't know what.
And that's the only reason I think the only reason he went or Atkins got a job there was because of Solomon Thomas, if we're being totally honest. And he, like you said, he probably won't have one after this. And apparently the person who said they're going to go 111 is a Gator grad. So I'm sorry for you, man. I mean, after last year, we know
your pain.
We know the pain. We know what it's like. But, I think, man, when you talk about Florida, they got to cut bait with Napier right now. I think they do. They got to go out. And I don't think they can this isn't, Plant the Gator podcast or anything like that, but I don't think they can take another chance, right? I think they got to swing big and try and go get a coach that with some proven stuff behind him, man. Because I don't think you can take another chance on a G5 coach like you did with Sunbelt Billy. But the next game, Michael, here, Georgia Tech. I called this one on the last week's show. Georgia Tech upsets Clemson 24-21. This was not like some monumental upset that I just pulled out of nowhere. I just thought, man, when you watch these teams play, because again, you talk about how good LSU's defense is. Well, they went against a terrible Clemson offense.
Right.
They went against Louisiana Tech, and then they went against a terrible Florida offense too. And so again, like how good, I think LSU is slightly, maybe even overrated right now, but I just don't think we have enough data to really know truly what everybody is right now. Because again, you've seen some teams kind of squander like Clemson and Florida. But, man, Georgia Tech goes in here. Look, all Georgia Tech under Brent Key does is beat ranked ACC teams.
Ridiculous.
That is like all he does, man. I'm glad we don't play Tech this year. But what's interesting with this one, man, Clemson, 1-2 start for the first time since 2014. That offense looks inept. Cade Klubnik looks terrible. The defense, I don't think is terrible, but it's like you mentioned with Florida State last year, right? When you had a pretty good defense paired with an offense that just can't get out of its own way, it just makes the defense look worse. And so even Troy lost 28-7 to Memphis, and they were given that was worse than they did against Clemson.
Right.
Now, here's the thing when you talk about Georgia Tech on the flip side of that, because we'll talk about Clemson in a second. I think Georgia Tech could be a contender for Charlotte this year if Haynes King stays healthy. They were my dark horse team in the ACC this year. I think what Brent Key is doing at Georgia Tech, he's building a tough physical football, a brand of football there. They also have a cake ACC schedule.
Yep.
So does Cal. So does UNC, which is so that the problem with Florida State right now is you have to handle your business against one of the tougher schedules in the ACC. You got a lot of these cream puff schedules like a Georgia Tech and a Cal and a UNC that they might not even be the best teams, but they can almost play their way into Charlotte. But the thing for me, man, is when I look at Georgia Tech, they got a tough defense. They play hard. They do all these things, but they are so reliant on Haynes King.
Yes.
If anything happens to them, they're screwed because in that game on Saturday, Haynes King was responsible for 314 of Georgia Tech's 358 yards. That kid, he's tough, man. He runs hard. He runs tough. And so credit to Georgia Tech and what they're able to do there. I can't wait to see them play against Georgia that last game of the season and see what they can do this time against them. But, man, I think the credit goes to Georgia Tech, but the story is Clemson for a team that had preseason national championship odds. They were the favorite to win the ACC. They look terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, let me just start with Georgia Tech first. I want to make sure we give them, like you said, proper credit. I mean, they went out there and they handled Clemson. Now, I know it was inevitable, right, Jesse, that they would have a great start to the beginning of the game, right? I think they were up 13-7 at some point, going into halftime, whatever it was. And then, of course, Clemson was going to make the adjustment, come back and make it a game. I even believe Clemson took the lead for a little bit there. And then Georgia Tech, or they tied up 21-21. Yeah. They go down and they hit the game-winning field goal again. Like, seriously, right?
Yeah.
Like the only thing that can stop Georgia Tech is if you had a bulldog somewhere. That's the only thing that seems to be able to stop Georgia Tech. It's so ridiculous that they keep winning on these walk-off field goals. Just brings back trauma. But anyways, here's the thing, Jesse. They were within Clemson's 25-yard line 5 times in the game, right? 5 times. And they come away with a couple of touchdowns, but mostly field goals. Imagine if they were able to convert all those to touchdowns. This would have been a blowout. This wouldn't have been a game. So that tells you, man, Georgia Tech really did a number on Clemson. They were very prepared for it. Brent Key is a good coach. Like you just, I mean, it's time to admit it. That dude can coach. I mean, those boys, they play hard for him. They love him. You got former FSU, national championship Heisman Trophy winner quarterback Chris Winkie as their offensive coordinator, which every time I see it, I'm like, bro, come home, please. Just come home. But so kudos to them. On the other side, Clemson was supposed to be this juggernaut this season. The offense was supposed to be fixed. Cade Klubnik was supposed to have figured it out. The defense was supposed to be this thing. And again, now I'm not saying the defense is bad. They're not bad. They're not Clemson good as they normally been. And Clemson, Jesse, I don't know if you saw this. They're starting to do Clemsoning things again, right?
Yeah.
They're starting to make that moniker of Clemsoning come back alive again. And so you just have to wonder, they're 0-1 in the ACC, but they could win out for the rest of the season and still find themselves, which is why, again, like you said, they're still, top, 3 there to get back to the ACC championship game and to win it, because it's just Clemson until you see otherwise. But man, to be 1-2 on the season with close losses at home against LSU, close loss on the road against Georgia Tech, you just have to wonder, is this team feeling like they still have something to play for? Can Dabo get them back together to go for the rest of the season? And their schedule, they still have some tough games. They got Syracuse that comes at home. They got to go to North Carolina. They got to go to Boston College. Then they get SMU, Duke before Florida State goes there. Then they got to go to Louisville. And then, of course, they end the year at South Carolina. Now that South Carolina game might look different with Lenore Seller, depending on what his injury status is as well, too. So they have a winnable, they can win out. It's very possible for them to win out because their toughest game really right now looks like at home against Florida State, and then they go to Louisville. That's their 2 toughest games left on the schedule besides what happens at South Carolina.
Yeah, I think I was trying to look at it the other day, and people were talking about maybe how bad of a season Clemson can have. I still think they're going to beat Syracuse. I think they're going to beat North Carolina because North Carolina looks terrible. I think they're going to beat Boston College, who, by the way, we're going to talk about in a minute, just lost to Stanford. I really only see maybe South Carolina and Florida State as being the only other losses. So they could end up still going 7-5 with maybe 1 to 2, or Louisville being the other loss, maybe being 2 ACC losses, which would probably put them out of the picture of Charlotte this year. But I mean, it's not a killer schedule going forward in the ACC. There's no Miami this year. So we'll have to see with Florida State there. But, again, you talk about Georgia Tech being able to sneak into Charlotte. Man, their ACC schedule is Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Duke, who is falling off a cliff, Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, and Pitt. That's a team that could realistically win every one of those games and sneak into Charlotte. So, man, it's going to be an interesting season to watch. It's just something where this picture might not be decided till very late in the season. But, man, the next one here I want to talk about, we'll get to some comments as we go through this. But NC State, we'll pick up the pace a little bit with some of these games that aren't quite as important. NC State outlasts Wake Forest 34-24, second comeback win in 2 weeks. I will say this. Virginia showed some life against NC State. Wake Forest showed some life against NC State. But at the same time, man, you can't really count out that NC State team. They were able to get 2 comeback wins in 2 weeks. And you kind of saw the Wake Forest you expected to see in that game. They did play at Wake Forest in that one. They did play Virginia in Carter Finley. So the fact that, Virginia gave them all they wanted in Carter Finley was something to see there. But it kind of makes you question NC State if they're in a dogfight with Virginia and the Wake Forest of the world. But again, this is a game that when you go into, man, you look at 2022 NC State, right? We had that game in the first half, and we could not close it out in the second half, and you end up losing. This is a team. You got to go on the road on a Friday night to Carter Finley. You cannot not expect to go up there and play for 4 quarters because they've already shown you that they can come back from behind and win 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I mean that they're that pesky team again that you think you've buried them, and then somehow they're like the Undertaker. They sit up and they got their eyes and they're just ready to just break your heart again and again. This is why I'll tell you all the time, Jesse. I don't care if they could be 0-10, 0-8, 0-7, 0 Baker. If Florida State's going to Carter Finley Stadium, I ain't got that much confidence.
Yeah, no, it's always a tough place to play, right? And I hate that we have to. It's more. I always keep saying with NC State, it's more about where than who. It's just a juju in that place. And again, they've shown you that you better come for a 4-quarter fight. That's because they're going to be in it. UVA, your next ACC opponent coming up after Kent State. They win over William and Mary this week, 55-16. I think the only thing I know about William and Mary is a famous Bobby Bowden quote where he says, "You might play better if you had more Williams and less Marys."
That's right. I remember that quote.
That's the only thing that sticks with me about William and Mary. But they get the win there, 55-16, pretty much like you would expect over an FCS team. Shout out to Bobby. Rest in peace there. The GOAT, man. But next up for them, they host Stanford, who, by the way, beat Boston College out west 30-20. Now, Boston College does not look very good. Probably wish maybe they still had Tommy at quarterback there. But, Michael, I think this says 2 things, right? This says, first off, that UVA team, man, I know they had that really, really close. It was down to the last play of the game against NC State. I think they're an okay team, right? I think they're a pretty okay team. They could have easily won that game and be undefeated right now. Right. But also this shows you when you talk about Stanford, man, that West trip, that going all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast, which is what Boston College had to do. Right. Man, you can't, you gotta, it's tricky, right? You got to go out there and you got to be able to beat them. And Stanford actually figured some things out. They were able to run the ball well on Boston College. So, man, you cannot sleep on that long trip out West. But I am interested to see what UVA does against Stanford this week, if they kind of put them away like the team we've seen Stanford beat in the first 2 weeks, or if they're in a dogfight against Stanford at home. So that'll be one to watch coming up this Saturday, UVA against Stanford.
Yeah, what I love about this game is that both teams are going to put their all into this game because it's an important game. It's a league game. So you're going to be able to see Virginia at their best, and I can't wait to get that film. And then you're going to be able to see Stanford at their best, and I can't wait to get that film because you'll be able to see then kind of what you're going up against. I'll be tuned in at some point in time. It's a 7:30 game, so I'll be tuned in at some point to try to catch it because I would really love to see what this Virginia team is. Is it the team that lost a 4-point game against NC State, or is it or do they acquiesce back to the mean of that, right, and see what they are? And then of course Stanford as well too. And how does Virginia adjust to that going out west? That 3-hour time difference when you're coming from the East Coast.
Yeah, and it is at Virginia. I think maybe what I was saying there was with Florida State having to go all the way out. Yeah, with Florida State going all the way out there, you see that Boston College should have won that game. Right. I mean, Boston College is not exactly good, but Stanford is terrible. And so you go out there sometimes, man, again, that almost bit Miami last year, going all the way out there against Cal. A couple comments here. As Jeff says, exactly. If you have to come back against Wake Forest, it does kind of say something about you. That's a brand new team with a lot of players that are brand new there. Henry says he is going to be at the NC State game. And am I going to look for a meetup here? I already took the day off, Henry, so I know I keep saying I'm going to wait, I'm going to hold, I'm going to see how it goes. I know me. I'm going to end up being like, well, it's only a couple hours away. So we'll keep that one on the back burner. We'll probably be there. But, man, again, definitely looking forward to that Virginia game coming up soon, and then the Miami game, the tailgates that we're going to have there. Next up, Michael, Virginia Tech. Man, I hate this for the Hokies, right? I have a little small, soft place in my heart for those. It's a great fan base. I've got to work with a lot of their writers and podcasters and stuff as we've met up over the years. I got a lot of good friends that cover Virginia Tech. But it's funny, man, when I told you guys last week when I had texted my friend that covers Virginia Tech, shout out to Sons of Saturday podcast. I said, man, well, hopefully you guys bounce back against ODU. And he said, no, I hope we lose. So this same situation can happen. And that's exactly what happened. Man, they got absolutely blown out. 45-26 to Old Dominion. Brent Pry has been fired. His first loss at Virginia Tech was to Old Dominion, and his last loss was at Old Dominion. And, we talked about in ACC Media Days where if you're the head coach and you're Brent Pry and you come to the podium and you say, this is the closest thing to what I have wanted Virginia Tech to look like in my tenure, and you start 0-3 and get blown out. That game was like, 30-something to nothing at one point to a G5 or G6 school. That's not a good look, man. No. So they had to make the move there. They're going to be under an interim coach. I've already seen a couple guys flirt with the portal. Kyron Jones, again, like I said last week, man, he's just consistently not good. There was one play there where I think it was 3rd and 3 or 4, and he actually has plenty of room to duck his shoulder and get the first down. It slides a yard short of the first down. It looks like they've quit, right? And that's, I hate it for them, but it's going to probably be one of those, I don't want to say 0-12 type of seasons, but they got Wofford coming up on Saturday, so they can get a win there. But, man, it might be a 1-11, 2-10 type of season unless they sneak up on somebody. If that team can rally around the interim coach, it's just not a good situation there, man. But hopefully, they're going to go a new direction after this. It sounds like they might get a new AD as well. I know people are kicking around the fun idea of hiring Michael Vick, who's at Norfolk State right now with 1 year of coaching experience. Man, I don't think that's a great idea because I think Virginia Tech doesn't need to take a chance. They need to go get someone to stabilize the ship who can come in there and start winning some games. But this is going to be a hard sell because Virginia Tech has a great entrance and a great crowd, and that's about it. Yeah. So how are you going to sell that to maybe a big-time head coach, man? So I hate to see it happen to Virginia Tech. This is a team I'd like to see, return to their days. But, man, it's all bad in Blacksburg right now.
Yeah, and we've become friends with you were already, but I've become friends with the Sons of Saturday podcast, and so I kind of feel for them. And man, gosh, this is the Virginia Tech that obviously my first foray into national championship fandom of Florida State was to watch the 99 game with Vic running around like crazy and Pete up catching crazy passes and Bobby holding up the trophy and just obviously I was super excited for Florida State winning, but I also was a little tiny fan of Mike Vick. I picked him on Madden every time to play Mike Vick, right?
Yeah,
when we were playing in the backyard, I'd be like, Mike Vick, and so I mean, let's be real. They have one of the most Florida State with Chief Osceola and Renegade planting a spear, in my mind, is the most iconic entrance. But second is Enter Sandman. Come on. Every time Virginia Tech is on primetime TV, I tune in, even though I know they might lose the game, even though the game might be boring, because I want to see Enter Sandman, right? That is one of the coolest.
It's a bucket list stadium.
It's a bucket list stadium. I want to see a game there. This program deserves to be good. It really does deserve to be good. When the ACC brought Virginia Tech in with Miami and raided the Big East and got Virginia Tech and got Pitt and got Miami and Virginia Tech were supposed to be one of the premier programs coming to the ACC to help boost what Florida State was already doing in the ACC. This was before Clemson got good again, or good anyways, right? And so, and it has, outside of that one ACC championship, it has never materialized. It has never been the thing they wanted to. And they've tried coach after coach after coach. And it's just so sad. Now, I will say this, because somebody made the comment on Twitter about how Virginia Tech is going to get left behind. And kudos to Sons of Saturday for posting this. He wrote, he said, with that, Virginia Tech is on the doorstep of catapulting back into the near top of athletic funding, plus has one of, if not, of course, he's biased, best fan bases and TV products in the league. College football isn't leaving the Hokies behind. And I would have to agree. I think even if Virginia Tech doesn't end up in the Big Two conferences, Virginia Tech is going to be part of college football, a part of that top tierness of that. They just got to find the right coach who can energize that fan base and continue to build upon that, the athletic funding with the new rev share and all like that stuff is concerned. Yeah. because they will be able to bring in. They should be able to bring in the success initiative money, because they're one of the brands that people want to tune in to see.
Yeah, I think the hard part with Virginia Tech is they're at a crossroads for that program right now, right? They have to look for a new coach. And the problem with Virginia Tech, and not to dive down this wormhole, is, but just being like, they're one of the programs I keep my eye on because I got a lot of friends over there. That athletic department has underfunded that football program for about 20 years. And so if they don't get serious about funding their football program and going and finding a coach, they're going to get left behind as far as big boy football goes. Now, like you said, they'll always matter. But man, they have to get behind that football program. The athletic department has to clean its mess up right now. But I mean, again, man, you got a sleeping giant there that's just waiting for the right guy to awake it. What worries me about Virginia Tech, if you're a Virginia Tech fan, is that, was all that success because of Frank Beamer? Like you saw Florida State, Bobby Bowden, without a shadow of a doubt, built Florida State into what it was. But then Jimbo Fisher was able to come in behind him and win a national title. Mike Norvell should have been allowed to be in the playoffs to contend for a national title.
Right.
Virginia Tech, they did pretty good. They had a couple of good seasons under Fuente there. But, man, since Frank Beamer left, it has been just all pretty much bad. So that's the biggest question was, did you just kind of get lightning in a bottle with Frank Beamer and Mike Vick and gosh, his name, the defensive Bud Foster, Bud Foster, the legendary defensive coordinator there. Did you get lightning in a bottle in that? Maybe I don't know, man. We'll just have to see. A couple quick questions here. Jeff says, is the ACC network, is that on for the Virginia game? That's going to be on ESPN on Friday night at 7:00. Does Shane Beamer go to Virginia Tech? No, I don't think so. Unless he were to get fired from South Carolina, which I don't think is going to happen. They just gave him a extension last year. Right now, being in the SEC and the resources that South Carolina has, there's no way you're leaving that job. I don't care if Frank asked him personally to take that job. I don't think there's any way that you do it.
I don't mean to be offensive to Virginia Tech, but if you're at Vanderbilt, you're not leaving to go to Virginia Tech just because of the resourcing of the SEC, the nature of the games, all like that. Right now, Virginia Tech is not the hot commodity program that it once was.
No, you're right. And really, Virginia Tech and Miami struggles are the one thing that has put the ACC in the position that it's in. Like if they had came in and done what they had done historically, the ACC probably wouldn't be playing third fiddle right now. But moving on down the ACC schedule here, Michael, Pitt embarrassingly goes on the road and loses to West Virginia. I understand it's a rivalry game. Things can happen, right? And I say embarrassing because West Virginia just lost to Ohio. And I don't mean the Ohio State. I mean the Ohio Bobcats. They lost that game and then turn around and beat Pitt. So, man, I think Pitt is always a scrappy team. But it's like Henry said earlier with one of the teams here about how they're always going to – Georgia Tech, how they're always going to drop that kind of ACC game, that mid-ACC game that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Man, Pitt is just one of them teams that, like, they just can't – they're, like, consistently 7-5, 8-4. So, man, that was a game that I had circled on the calendars I thought might be tougher than people expect. I don't think this changes it a whole lot because it was 31-24 in overtime. But, man, that was not a game that I had Pitt losing.
Well, and I think that you have to put an asterisk by that game. It's kind of like, Florida State could be 2-10 as they were, and Miami could be 10 and whatever they were. But when Miami and Florida State play, that game is always going to be a difficult game because it's a rivalry game. It's a deep rivalry game, and man, it don't get no deep than West Virginia Pitt. They hate each other.
I think they call it.
My gosh, they do not like each other. And so it was funny because I was watching Game Day, and I normally don't watch Game Day, but I was watching it to see their picks, and they talked about this how everybody, Saban, Dez, Kurt, all of them, including Candace Parker, the guest picker, they all picked Pitt to win, and of course Pat McCaffrey. Pat went to West Virginia, so he picked West Virginia. Of course, right? But they talked about how like they wanted to pick West Virginia, but like just because they were even missing a player or two or something like that. But this game, it always goes down to like the last few minutes of the game. It's always usually a one-score game, and so for me, I kind of chalked that at like, they shouldn't have lost that, but that's just always a tough game.
Yeah, it's just this is one of those games where, and they were joking, no love for Rich Rod. I think Rich will do good things there, right? Yeah. I think he'll turn West Virginia around, but this is the type of game that Pitt fans just have to be tired of losing,
right?
And rivalry game aside, a game you should go on the road and be able to win. It's just like they just can't get over that hump. So that's going to be one to watch, man. We'll keep watching those. But that's most of the ones that are on your schedule. Couple of other interesting games here, Michael, just real quick, is UGA, as we mentioned, takes down Tennessee 44-41 in overtime. Buddy, I thought it was getting late early for the Dogs in the first quarter when it was 21-7. They were literally just, Tennessee was throwing bombs all over Georgia, and their pass defense was still in the locker room. They forgot to get off the bus. It was insane to see a Georgia defense give up all the plays that they did. But then Georgia tightens things up. And, man, I'll just say this. Like, most of y'all know I don't have any love lost for Georgia, right? I hope my wife's not listening. I have no love lost for Georgia. But I will never bet against Kirby Smart, right? Nope. That man is just – he's one of the best coaches, probably active coaches in the country. If not, he's probably the best active coach in the country right now. You just can never bet against him. And you can never bet against the psychological hurdle of you've lost 8 in a row, now 9 in a row against Georgia. So, man, had to be a heartbreaker for them. You get down there, you get a chance to win the game. You had the game won with the field goal, and then you end up missing that, and then you don't capitalize in overtime. Georgia just kind of started tightening down the defense and took things away, took a lot of the run game away. They made adjustments. They didn't really let the quarterback, Joey Aguilar, just light them up, continue to light them up after that first quarter and a half. But, man, I will say this. I think in this game, you saw the two best teams in the SEC play on Saturday. I think one of these two teams will be in Atlanta for the championship. The other is probably going to be down to LSU and Alabama. I think those are going to be your other two. I think both of these teams looked pretty good in this game. I didn't expect it to be a 44-41 kind of shootout. I didn't expect that. But, Michael, here is gosh, this is mind-blowing. When Georgia scores 35-plus points, under Kirby Smart, they are 60-0.
Gosh,
that is unbelievable. That's that is why no matter what happens with Georgia, I never count them out, man. 60-0 when scoring 35-plus.
That's unreal. It's just unreal. I mean, listen, the way I equate this game was, Georgia was this heavyweight boxer, right? Slower, a little bit leaner, right? And Tennessee was this young, up-and-coming pup, got all the puncher's chance, and they're just throwing haymakers right up front. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, they're swinging away, and they're connecting on everything, and Georgia's just taking it and taking it and taking it. And it was like Tennessee just got real cocky, and they, in a lot of ways, went away from what was working really well. So let me give you a stat here. Tennessee ran the ball 34 times, okay? Averaged 3.7 yards a carry, right? Their Deshaun Bishop, number 18, had the most with 15 carries for 54 yards. Star Thomas had nine carries for 60 yards, right? They were humming earlier, But then as the game got tighter and tighter, they just start throwing the ball a lot more. Let me give you another stat. Georgia ran the ball 55 times in the game for 198 yards, 3.7 yards. And here's how you knew this game was over. The announcers came out at the beginning of overtime, okay? I think it was Jesse Palmer that was calling that game. No, it was Kurt. Yeah, I think it was Kurt and Chris Fowler. And Kurt comes out, and I don't like Kurt Kershry, but he had this point. He said Georgia and Kirby Smart is going to come out, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to test your mantle, and they're going to run the ball right at you. Kirby Smart likes to do this in overtime. He wants to run the ball. And what did they do? They ran the ball, got down to like the 2-yard line, and then ran it in, right? Like that was the game. You just knew that as a heavyweight fighter, they took all the blows, and all they needed to was to land that one haymaker punch, and they'd win. And that's what they did. And it's just sad. Just sad.
A couple things you're not going to do against Georgia. You're not going to stop the run, and you're not going to run the ball on them. And that's the thing, man. They're just good at it. And I know that's heartbreaking for Tennessee. Obviously, they can bounce back and do some good things. I thought they looked really good in the game. But, man, sometimes it's just hard to get over that psychological hurdle of beating a team that you just haven't. Doesn't mean you can't beat them, but just you haven't done it.
Can you imagine losing to Miami 9 straight times?
Ooh, I know they had to be sad when Jimbo beat them 7 times in a row. Yeah. That was pretty sweet. It's fun on the other end of things, right? It's never fun to be on the wrong side of it. The other one here, A&M knocks off Notre Dame at South Bend, 41-40. Exciting game. Obviously, the very last play of the game. They end up winning there. Man, I think this is more where it's hard because I don't think Notre Dame is a bad team, right? I don't think Notre Dame is Wake Forest, but they haven't won a football game this season yet. And so again, how good is that Miami win? How good is, that resume that they got when they're 0-2? I know both of their losses have come against ranked teams, but man, that was just one that I was I don't think I was shocked to see them lose that game at home, but still, man, 0-2 after making a national championship appearance last year, man. Things are not going good for Notre Dame. Now, I think a lot of people in theory think they played their way out of the playoffs. I don't know if they have a way that they're going to make it in. I'm sure, obviously, with them still being ranked in some of the polls, they can probably find a way because it's Notre Dame and they get that weird Notre Dame bump. But yeah, man, this was an interesting one to see here. And so that kind of continuously knocks that Miami resume down a little bit. But yeah, A&M knocks off Notre Dame at home. 0-2 start on the season.
Yeah, I actually called this. I actually called for the the win here. I thought after what I saw against Miami, I thought that A&M would bring a better defense in there that would cause the starter, I can't think of his name right now, some trouble. And at first you thought, oh man, Notre Dame's about to run away with it, but then Texas A&M comes back, gets the win there, and now they're 0-2 and again, they're ranked. They're still ranked in the AP poll. And I get it. You're like, oh, they lost close, but man, you haven't won a game this season. How are you ranked at any poll right now?
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of like the thing they talk about in the NFL. When you look at teams who lose the Super Bowl, they tend to come back next season and not have the best of seasons.
Yep.
Well, this is something, if you go back and look at when Notre Dame lost with Brian Kelly in the national championship, they came back the next year and kind of struggled.
They lost a lot.
They lost a lot. So
yeah. And Jeff has a question here that's kind of interesting, right? I got a question. If we get in the playoffs, and that's a if, we got a long way to go, right? These are hypotheticals. Would you rather play Oregon and get revenge on them or Georgia and get revenge on them? Well, judging that by the fact that our quarterback likes to talk a little bit, I don't think I want to play Dan Lanning, because anytime you talk bad about Dan Lanning, he is going to hang 50 on you. So I don't know, man. Maybe Georgia in that one. I don't know. Hey, look, I'd rather play South Florida if we make it to the playoffs or whatever. Give me the G5 team. I'm trying to win. But no, that's a tough question, man. I think you'd probably rather play Oregon from a team perspective, but man, I think both of those would be really, really tough games. But I think looking at it this year, I'd probably rather play Georgia than Oregon. Now we'll see. Oregon has Penn State coming up in like 2 weeks. So we'll see what that team is. They beat a bunch of kind of bad teams by a lot. So we'll see what that Oregon team has when they go against Penn State. Georgia looks really good too, man. But I think so far from what I've seen, I'd probably rather play Georgia than Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get the question because of what happened with the butt fumbles and everything with Jameis Winston. I mean, gosh, we had a chance to repeat that year for sure. We probably don't play Oregon if we don't get screwed by the College Football Playoff Committee.
Exactly. Yep.
Putting us that low. Gosh, 63-3, man. I don't know. I have a lot more feelings about that game just because of how it happened, when it happened, the fact that Georgia lost. They deserved to be in the Orange Bowl. Florida State didn't lose. They did deserve to be in the Orange Bowl. All the crap talking that's come from that. I'd rather play Georgia and see how we measure up to them again.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, I definitely think that one's a fresher wound too. So you definitely want that one. But man, the last thing, a couple here, Vandy down South Carolina, 31-7. Man, that did I had taken Vandy for the upset with the points. I took the 4 points with them. I didn't think it was going to be 31-7. That's not a good look down there in Columbia. And then Texas's offense with Arch still looks awful, man. They look terrible. So I think when you talk about all these games, Michael, I think the scheme of the thing here, because we're going to kind of move the show along from week 3, is a lot of it to me is when you look at the national picture, there's some good teams out there, but there isn't, as we've seen in the past, that one team that's kind of like, man, and if you get to the playoffs, you still got 2021 Georgia waiting. You still got some of these Bama teams waiting, right? I don't see anyone out there that looks like an unstoppable force, and I don't see anyone who's looked night and day better than Florida State. Now, again, we have a very small sample size and a very even smaller sample size for Florida State with only 2 games in the book and one of them against an FCS team. But so far, man, I mean, when you look at Texas was one of the preseason favorites, they look terrible. Clemson was a preseason favorite. They look terrible. Florida, the same book. Man, I think that when you see some of these scores and you see things, the results on the field start to play out, I think when you look around, there's not a team out there that I don't think Florida State can't have on a neutral field on any given Saturday that they would not walk into that game and have a good chance against.
Well, think about what's common among the teams that you just mentioned. Okay, let's go to Clemson. Clemson has a pretty good defense, but the offense seems just lost, right? Look at Texas. Again, pretty good defense. Archie Manning looks like the second coming of Ryan Leaf. If you remember that quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not what they projected him to be. The offense looks lost in a lot of ways. Look at LSU. Really good defense. Offense looks lost again, right? Obviously we haven't seen Ohio State only played their toughest game was against Texas, and they struggled against that defense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was a low-scoring affair, 14-7. They only scored 14 points against that defense. Now, they've only played cupcake games since then, right? They just got finished beating Ohio, the Bobcats, 37-9, I believe. So we haven't really seen them get tested yet either as well. So really, when you're looking at this small sample size, it's really hard to kind of say, okay, so who's the best team out there? There doesn't really seem to be a juggernaut just yet. I think the more we get into conference play, we'll be able to kind of assess, what really these teams are as we get into conference play more.
Yeah, I just don't think we have enough data points yet, right? I don't think you're far enough into the season. There's been too many. It's so hard to judge things off cupcake games, and everybody's pretty much played one of them. Right. So speaking of the next game, Michael, let's talk a little bit about Kent State. We'll do some week 4 look-aheads, and then we'll wrap this thing up. But let's talk about this Kent State game, Michael. Before I do that, let me bring you a quick word from today's sponsor, and that is Alumni Hall FSU. Look, if you guys are going to that game, or if you're just an FSU fan and you want some awesome gear, go check these guys out. 1415 Timber Lane Road in Tallahassee, or shop online at alumnihall.com. If you're headed to Tallahassee, you can buy online and pick up in the store to make it easy on your way to Doak. They have all kinds of great gear for everybody in the family, tailgating supplies. They got everything that you need. And again, you can save 10% with code SPEAR. That is Alumni Hall FSU. They got new logo, old logo, all the stuff that you love. So we appreciate those guys sponsoring us, and we appreciate you guys rocking with us. So, Michael, let's talk a little bit about this Kent State game coming up Saturday, 3:30 on ACC Network. It is a sold-out game. So, man, looking forward to this one. Crowd's going to be good. I think you're going to have some good energy in the stadium after the bye week. People are ready to watch this team get back out here and play. Man, Florida State comes in as a massive favorite, 44.5-point favorite in this game. Over under of 55.5. Implied score breaks down to something of around 52-6. Matchup predictor gives you 99% chance to win here. Again, Kent State was one of the worst teams in the country last year. Went 0-12, 134th, dead last in offense and defense. They look a little bit better than they did last year, but this is still a game that you should win going away. They've already played Texas Tech, lost 62-14. They play Florida State coming off a bye, and then they get Oklahoma coming off a bye. So it's going to be a bad couple weeks for the Golden Flashes. Michael, I don't want to go super in depth here because we are going to roll out a full-on Kent State preview later this week, so make sure that you keep a lookout for that. But let's just talk a little bit about what they've done and kind of how we see this game going here, right? Game 1, they beat FCS Merrimack 21-17. They got outgained in that game. Merrimack had a lead with 5 minutes left. Kent State ran a kickoff back to get the win there. Did snap a 21-game losing streak, so good for them. That has to be really hard to get up for every game knowing you have not won in a couple of years. That's really tough. So they do end the streak, but, man, they barely squeaked by an FCS school. With the kickoff return for a touchdown, they only scored 14 offensive points against an FCS team. They gave up 4.7 yards per carry and were held under 100 yards rushing against an FCS defense. Then they go on the road to Texas Tech. They get blown out 62-14, got outgained by almost 400 yards. Texas Tech put up 230 on the ground on them. Kent State again gets held under 100 yards rushing, only 1.9 yards per carry. Then you look at game 3 against Buffalo. This was actually their best game of the season. Lost 31-28, but that was as a 24.5-point dog. So they go on the road and they they get them at home and they almost pull a almost 25-point upset. So they got a little bit something working for them that we'll talk about here in just a second, man. But they actually had the lead in that game with a minute left, and then ended up that lead slipped away. But this is a game they lost 43-7 last year. They put up over 400 yards of offense. And the freshmen that they have went with, because Kent State has been running a 2-quarterback system, they've kind of settled in on one guy. with Drew DeShields, the freshman there, and he's given this offense a spark. He was 22 of 32 for 279 and 2 touchdowns against Buffalo, 14 attempts on the ground, 37 yards, and a touchdown as well. So, man, the story of the game has been this kid, right? He has really come in and sparked this offense. But again, man, this is a team when you're talking about just the major differences in athletes that you have. That's something that stood out to me when I watched the Texas Tech game is the level of athletes, the speed and the size on the field is just night and day. And so we're going to save a lot of the details for that preview here. But, man, again, the things that I want you to know in this episode is that this freshman is playing well, right? He is 6 of 8 for 267 and 4 touchdowns on throws over 20 yards. He can stretch the arm with his field. He stretched the field with his arm, and he's not Stretch Armstrong. Right. And then literally stretch his arm the length of the field. But, man, he's also a mobile guy too. He can run it as well. Their offensive line is not good. They're decent size, but they're not good. And then you should win this game in the trenches, right? And then on the defense, the one thing I want you to know here is the Kent State defensive line is tiny, right? I went back and looked, and their base set is a 3-3-5. But when I went back and looked at the top 5 defensive linemen by snap count, they only have an average weight of 267 pounds. Florida State's offensive line average weight is 324 pounds. Kent State only has 1 defensive lineman over 300 pounds, and he's a redshirt freshman that doesn't play very much. They only have 3 sacks in 3 games on the season. Their DBs aren't very fast. They can't match the speed of Texas Tech. They've given up. They're 135th of 136 teams in explosive plays over 20 yards allowed. They gave up 8 versus Buffalo. So, man, I think at the end of the day, when we talk about this game, again, we got a full preview coming for you guys, is Kent State has found something in the freshmen. So I think they might be a little scrappier than they would have been what I thought 2 weeks or a week ago when I saw them with the other guy. So I think they're playing better than they were last year. But this is a game where the athletes, the coaching, the scheming, everything sides with Florida State, the home field advantage, all that stuff. So this is one where you should dominate the trenches. You should dominate the ground game. You should have better athletes on the perimeter, and you should go out and win by 50 points.
Yeah. This game should be over by, I would say halftime. You should be able to come out, focus, what's right in front of you, right? Execute the plan, dominate and win the game. It should be simple as that. Hopefully you're able to get some backups in. And we talk more about that in the preview that you guys will be coming out here real soon. So this should be a game you win, and you should be able to rest your starters in the second half. That's the hope, and that's the desire.
Yeah, and like I said, I think, like you said, man, first off, you want to come out and you want to dominate, right? I think there's that. But I also, like I said, to me, the biggest thing is let's hone down in on some of that depth. Let's get the guys who are really going to be a part of this some reps, because I'd like to see, maybe Sperry or Brock or whoever's QB2. I'd like to see them get a full quarter of reps. I don't need to see the walk-on so much in this game. But this is when I think you should, again, control the trenches. You should run all over them. You should be able to limit them as well. And you should get out of here with a dominating win. You're not proving anything by beating Kent State. I think what you really want out of this game is you don't want to end up in a Clemson-Troy situation where you're in a dogfight that just makes you look bad, right? These games are very, very low risk or high risk, low reward games. That's what I don't like about these games. They're good for practice. They're good for all the things that you need to develop throughout the course of the season. But it's a high risk, low reward, because if you go out and you win this game, you don't prove anything. If you go out and you don't win this game, not even losing, if you don't win it like you're supposed to, it's still kind of a black eye on your resume. So come out, start fast. Texas Tech had them down 48-0 at halftime. I think you want to see that same thing this week. Yep. Come out, knock these guys' will out early, crush them, get the backups in, win big.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. That's what we got to do, and that's what it should be.
Yeah, and so let's move on to week 4. What are we watching for this week as we get ready to close this episode out, Michael? We got a couple of good games on the slate here to look forward to. And what I'm thinking here, let's start with some of the ranked games. You got Texas Tech going to number 16, Utah. Utah is a 3.5-point favorite. That's going to be one to watch there. Texas Tech has put all their oil money into one basket to get these players on this team. So you better go out and make good use of it and win that game. Another one you got ranked matchup here, number 22, Auburn going to number 11, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a 6.5-point favorite. I'm going to take the Sooners in that game. I think they're going to be able to use that home field advantage. And then, man, any 2 thoughts on those, and then we'll talk about the big one, the Florida-Miami game.
Well, I thought interesting enough that it's crazy that game day is going to Florida, Miami, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. Right. When you have Oklahoma and Auburn playing together, but I also understand that I guess maybe they're trying to save game day for Oklahoma when they play Texas at the Red River Rivalry there. But then you also have the Utah-Texas Tech game. Now, listen, Utah don't lose at home very often, right? So I don't care how much oil money you got. Kyle Willingham will have those boys ready to play. And so that's going to be a good game. That'll be a game to tune into as well, too. But I think from what I saw against Oklahoma, against Michigan, Oklahoma seems the real deal. Their quarterback, I mean, he is Mater, I think his name is, with Ben Arbuckle. John Mateer, sorry. With Ben Arbuckle, who was one of the candidates for a Florida State offensive coordinator job. They've got that thing gelling. And with Brent Venables taking over play call again, he's been one of the best defensive coordinators in the last 20 years in college football. And so now he's got that defense humming again. I don't see Auburn getting close in this game. I think they're a 6.5 point favorite. Yeah, I'd take Oklahoma, and I take the points as well too in this game.
Yeah, Auburn was a little underwhelming last week, even in their game there. I saw some people talking about, like, we are kind of wasting some really good receivers that we have. And so we'll see, man. They won 31-15 against South Alabama. So, yeah, I'm going to take Oklahoma and probably take the points on that one too. Yeah. The next one, Michael, UF at Miami. Here's what's crazy. Miami is only a 3-point favorite at home over a terrible Florida team. I haven't done this yet. I'm probably going to hammer Miami in the points on this. I don't see Florida responding in this game. I just think Miami's a better team. I think Florida's struggling right now. You get them at home, that they still struggle to sell out the rented stadium, but they're going to have a good crowd on hand. I think for this one, obviously, because you're going to have a lot of Florida, a lot of people interested in the regionality of that game. So, man, to me, I just want to see this Florida put up a fight, right? Do they have pride? Do they respond against a Miami team that is better than them? But I think this one's going to get away from them, and I think Miami's going to win by a lot more than 3, maybe 3 scores.
Yeah, I think Vegas is giving them the 3 just because of their defense. I think they're expecting Florida to kind of have a same defensive performance they had against LSU down in Death Valley. And if Florida comes out and is able to keep Carson Beck in check and get him to in some bad throws, and they're able to kind of affect that offensive line, then look for this to be somewhat of a close game. But I don't anticipate that it being close. I think that by the fourth quarter, you're probably looking at a 2-score, and I don't mean 2-score like 2 field goals. I mean like 2 touchdowns, at least a 14-point game.
Yeah, if Florida's defense can come out and put up a fight, and if they can run the ball, and actually do some things where they don't have to put the game on Lagway's arm. And if they do, they're in trouble. And so, I got Miami rolling Florida in this one. And again, that's just going to go to setting up that big, huge matchup against Florida State. If both of you can avoid letdown, them against Florida and you against Virginia. I'm not talking about the Kent State game. I think you're good there. The next one here that's going to be interesting to watch is number 9 Illinois going to number 19 Indiana. This is a tough one, man, because the Kurt Cignetti formula of taking shots at the SEC, we're going to schedule like them. Man, you're just getting fat off cupcakes, and you have not played anybody yet. So you're going to play your first real team, and can they win? I mean, they beat the brakes off everybody they play. They just don't play anybody. Right. And I don't blame them for that, because a lot of the other teams that, they get a lot of crap for their schedule out of conference. But then again, I think Georgia plays Marshall, Austin Peay, and Charlotte this year.
Yeah.
That's no different. So the SEC comments hold water. I get what he's saying, but now you're about to get in the ring with your first actual fighter. And Illinois, I just wonder if they're a fraud or not, because they got a lot of credit for beating Duke 45-19, but that Duke team has not turned out to be good. I mean, they paid $7 million to take Tulane's quarterback just to lose to Tulane. That's not great money well spent, not return on investment there.
Nope.
So I don't know that I don't know, man. I guess I'm going to have, I don't even know that I have a pick in this one, right? Because I don't know much about either team, but I feel like Illinois just kind of being the first team that they're going to face that's actually real against Indiana. Let's see. Indiana is a 3.5 point favorite. Yeah. And because they're at home. So they basically get the home field edge. So I don't know, man. I feel like I want to pick Illinois because they got an okay defense, but I don't know that I trust Indiana when they just play a bunch of powder puffs.
Yeah, man, this game's a hard one. This is the one I might not that
I'm not touching this one. I
if
can
I
tell
was
you
a
that.
better, I'd be like, I'm not really sure about this one. Let me tell you the next 4 weeks for Illinois. Okay, so they go on the road against number 19 Indiana. Then they have, depending on how USC fares this weekend, number 25 USC come to Champaign. Then they go on the road to play Purdue. Then they have number 1 Ohio State coming in. Okay, that's the next 4 weeks. You're really going to find out who Illinois is. Are they for reals? Again, you don't know much about Indiana. Obviously, Illinois' best win was a beatdown of Duke. Obviously, Duke has turned out not to be the team we thought maybe potentially they could be. So, you know what I would say here, Jesse? I would say give me Indiana, but give me Illinois to cover that. I think Indiana wins by 3 or less.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at Indiana. Their best win is 27-14 over Old Dominion. I mean, granted, they blew out Indiana State and they blew out Kennesaw State. Yeah, I think Indiana's offense probably gives you the edge, but I don't know, man. Maybe Big Bielema and the boys can go in there and knock them off. So we'll see how that goes. One that we're going to watch, Syracuse at Clemson. How does Clemson respond? You're 17.5-point favorite in this game. But Michael, Clemson can't even score 17.5 points on a good day. So I don't know how they're going to cover that spread. This is a game that they should win. They're at home. They're a big-time favorite. I'm not worried about the win-loss. I'm worried about how does Clemson respond with their back against the wall, because, Cuse has got them in the past when they were pretty good. They were one of them teams that pulled an upset. If they can't come in and win this game, if Syracuse wins, Clemson is on quit watch, I think.
Yeah.
And so I think Clemson needs this one really badly. I think Clemson gets the win here. I don't know that I trust that cover because I don't know that I trust that offense.
Yeah. Listen, Clemson has scored 44 points at home this season, right? I'm sorry, they're not 44 points. They've scored, let's see, that'd be 37 points. 37 divided by 2 is 16-ish, somewhere in there. Okay, they're averaging about 16 to 17 points at home. Okay, they only scored 10 against LSU. They scored 27 against Troy. Syracuse obviously isn't as good as they had hoped they were going to be this season. So it really depends upon what does Cade Klubnik do? What does Garrett Riley figure out with this offense? Because it looks pedestrian right now. It looks like they're not even on the same page right now. And you want, as a Florida State fan, I know you might enjoy the demise of Clemson. I know I do, but you need them to be somewhat relevant by the time you go up there, in late October, early November, whenever that game is, right? You want them to be somewhat relevant so that game matters again. It's going to matter anyways, but you want it to matter from a national standpoint. So you would like for Clemson to beat Syracuse, but I would not be surprised, Jesse, if you turn or you get on ESPN on the app, and you look up the score of this game and it's in the fourth quarter and it's less than a 7-point game.
Yeah. And if that happens, that's still a bad look on Clemson. I mean, granted, you need to get the win, but a close one is going to look bad on you. And, I think it's interesting when you talk about the point that you make about Clemson, what their kind of squandering of the season sets up as is like, now you cannot go on the road and lose to Clemson. I know that's still a hard place to win, and I'm not acting like Death Valley somewhere you just waltz in and win every time you want. You can't go lose to Clemson now, or that's going to end up being an embarrassing loss. And that's kind of crazy to say about Clemson. But with what they've done so far, man, you cannot go on the road and lose that game. The last one we have here, Stanford at UVA, is going to be one that Noles fans are going to want to keep their eyes on. Stanford is getting 15.5 points traveling to Virginia. Oof. I think Virginia is going to get the win. I think Virginia is probably going to get the cover. I think Boston College probably had, maybe that long layover issue there going out all the way out to the West Coast. I think Virginia is a better team than Stanford all the way around, and I think they get the win here. I'm a little worried about 15.5. I would feel really good at covering if that was 13.5. So I'll take UVA and I'll skip the cover.
Yeah. I think Virginia wins this game. I would take Virginia, but I'm going to lay the points just because I think Stanford will cover that. I don't think Virginia is going to blow them out by 16 points. And so I would have the under if I was betting here on this one.
Yeah, same here. But guys, that's going to pretty much do it for our week 4 live episode. Look, guys, we love doing these because it's our chance to kind of connect with you guys. We get to talk about the national picture. We get to talk about Florida State as well. Like I said, if you guys are enjoying this, make sure you drop a like and subscribe. Let's get to 3,000. Let's push these numbers and let's see where we can take this channel as a community together. We appreciate you guys watching. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode and you can stay tuned to us. If you guys would like to go one step further and join the PTS tribe, it's like $5 a month and it helps support everything we do here. Everything goes back into the show. We really appreciate that as well. Shout out to the members who have already joined. We really appreciate you guys being through or coming through with this with us and supporting us. We really appreciate that. All of our content is always free. We let you choose whether you want to support financially or not. We don't ever put anything besides a pay or behind a paywall there. If you guys want to interact with us on social media, check out us. We're on Twitter. We are on Facebook. We are, of course, on Instagram, Threads, I think, too. You know, there's about 800 social media ones. We stick to the big 3. But you can get in on the conversation over there. We're very active in the comment section. So make sure you check that out as well. But, guys, that's going to do it. We appreciate everybody watching. And with that, Michael, I think we're going to close it out, man. Just excited for Florida State to get back on the field. I'm ready to watch them play again. It was kind of a boring week not watching them play, but we were treated some big games. There's going to be some big ones to watch this Saturday. Man, just really excited to watch Florida State get back in Doak and get back in action and some other games that we're going to keep our eye on, man. So looking forward to week 4. You guys, make sure you check out plantthespirit.com, our website. We'll be rolling out some stuff. Make sure you stay tuned for that Kent State preview that I will be dropping probably Wednesday morning. So stay tuned for that. Rate and review on the podcast helps us reach other Nole fans. Thank you guys so much for sticking around with us and watching. We really appreciate everything. And as always, we will catch you on the next one. Go Noles.